Hey guys, HalfPastThor here, and today I'm going to be doing something different. Something I've been asked by many of you to do. Today I'll be making a champion guide, and the champion I've chosen for this specific guide is Ryze, the spam late game mana mage man. And this guide will include everything from runes and masteries and summon spells, to spell combos, laning and teamfighting advice. As this is my first guide made for this channel, it will be a learning experience for me, so if I miss anything, just let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer any questions that I may not have answered in this guide. Also, I'll take on any advice you give me in later guides that I create. Welcome aboard the Ryze train, everybody. I hope you enjoy the ride. First things first, what does Ryze do and what is his role in general? I'll quickly describe his role as simply as I can. Imagine an AD carry whose auto attacks are spells. This is effectively what Ryze is, except instead of scaling heavily off a stat that comes with low defensive stats like ability power or attack damage, his spells scale highly off of his maximum mana, meaning the more mana he has, the more damage he will deal. This means that you can build tanky items such as Frozen Heart or Rod of Ages and benefit hugely from damage as well as defensive stacks, making him a late game powerhouse who is extremely hard to kill. To recap, Ryze is a late game, tanky spellcaster who acts like an AD carry who deals magic damage and is much harder to kill. On to Ryze's skill set. I'll go over each spell to give you guys a good idea of what each spell actually does. Firstly, we have his passive skill, which is what makes him such a machine gun of a caster and such a scary carry late game. It's called Arcane Mastery, and states that every time Ryze casts a spell, including its ultimate, every other spell cooldown is decreased by 1 second, allowing him to combo his spells together quickly to recast his Nuke and Snare, or Q and W, on a lower cooldown. His next spell is his 600 range nuke called Overload. Late game this will be hitting very hard and will be on a 2-second cooldown at max rank, which means that when you properly use his passive you can rotate your spells in such a way that you can almost instantly cast his Q twice. This spell also has a passive on it which reduces your cooldown reduction by 2% per rank, meaning that once this skill is maxed you get 10% out of the 40% of the cap for free. This frees up your item build, runes and masteries to include less cooldown reduction and more of other things like damage or tankiness. This spell is always maxed first. Now onto his W spell, Rune Prison. This is where he got his awesome tattoos. It is also a nuke, slightly less damaging than his Q, but it snares the opponent as well, for a scaling duration starting at 0.5 and scaling up to 1.75 seconds. This spell allows Ryze to keep his distance from attackers or to catch people out of position and lock them down, readying them for huge burst damage from you and your team. This spell is always max second. His final normal spell is called Spell Flux, which until late game is mainly only used to reduce the cooldown of your Q and W using your passive, because it doesn't have a very good early game damage, but it reduces your opponent's magic resist, making your other spells deal more damage. It also bounces between your enemies and yourself for utility purposes. It won't damage you, don't worry, and it works insanely well with his ultimate late game. This spell is great left at 1 point, making it the spell you max last. And now for his ultimate, Desperate Power. This spell will give Ryze a huge amount of utility for up to 7 seconds when maxed. It will give him spell vamp, movement speed, and the ability for his spells to deal 50% of their damage in AoE around the target. This helps to kite or make picks on people out of position because 80 movement speed is a huge amount. It also allows you to deal tons of damage in an AoE and be more tanky due to the spell vamp giving you HP back. After reading his skills we can clearly see how well they synergize together with each other and his passive. In the current meta, the lanes that you will most likely see Ryze played are top and mid lane. However, if you're going top lane, it is imperative that you dress smart. Ryze is very differently played in both of the lanes. I will talk about this more later in the guide, however his job late game does stay the same in both roles. Coming up on screen next are the summoner spell combos that I find are effective on Ryze. Which combo you use depends on the champion you're facing, what lane you're in, and what your goal is. However, as you all notice, Flash is a common theme in all these combinations, because it is so important as a late game hyper carry to be able to instantly reposition yourself in fights. Always take Flash, trust me. Barrier is to combat strong burst fighters that you can't beat in a 1v1. Examples of this would be silence using and stun using burst assassins, such as Talon, LeBlanc and Riven, because you can't cast your spells while they're casting their spells at you. It's an unwinnable fight. Exhaust is to combat those strong burst champions who cannot CC you while they burst you, meaning you can actually fight them back while reducing the damage that they're dealing to you. This would be Zed, Akali and Kha'Zix. Teleport is to mimic other global threats such as TF, Shen and Pantheon, or just other teleporters. Also usable if you want to split push and farm, and even pressure other lanes if yours is a farm lane. Ignite is for when you know you can fight your opponent 1v1 and have kill potential on them, while also knowing that you're safe enough not to need a defensive summoner. Ghost is for when you need more mobility, either in lane or against certain champions in fights. With the changes to distortion boots and the buff to exhaust, all of these summoners are now very viable options. Okay, so let's move on to our runes and masteries. Masteries first. On screen I'm going to give you an offensive, defensive and utility mastery tree for Ryze. My personal favourite one is the utility tree. Now, these are not all the be-all and end-all of trees for Ryze. Do some experimentation to see what suits you and your playstyle. These are just a guide to help you all get started. The offensive tree will allow you to deal more damage but sacrifice tankiness. The defensive tree will do the opposite. And the utility tree will give you a bit of survivability in lane, late game damage, and the best stat EU, move speed. Okay, so we're almost done with the behind the scenes stuff, as I like to call it. Last part of this guide is the item build for Ryze. Now, there are two very strong starts that I like to use on Ryze. One is the Boots 5 potion start. This allows me to start with over 400 move speed, which allows me to dodge around in lane and survive early game poke laners because I've got 5 potions. Now, this is a very good start for Ryze. There is another start, however, and if you prefer this start, it's a more damage orientated start. With the Sapphire Crystal, it allows you to cast more spells because you have more mana, and it allows your spells to do more damage because you have more mana. And it still allows you to start with 3 potions. It also allows you to build into your Tear of the Goddess faster and start getting that stat quicker. It also allows you to build into your Catalyst if you prefer to go Catalyst first, just for this lane sustain. But without any doubt, you're going to want to be building into your Tear of the Goddess first on Ryze, and then into your Rod of Ages once you've built the Tear. Once you've finished the Rod of Ages, you can then build your Sorcerer's Shoes and then look to finish your Archangel's Staff. Once you've finished your Archangels, you're going to be hitting your Power Spike at double the speed that you normally would if you just had a Tear of the Goddess, because it stacks twice as fast. Now, every game, you're going to want to look at who your opponents are, where the damage source is coming from, like who's fed, who's a bigger threat to you in a team fight. You then build accordingly against that source of damage, so whether it be attack damage, you build armor stats, either through the Frozen Heart or the Sonya's Hourglass, or even the Guardian's Angel, and then same if you're facing a threat that's magic damage heavy, which is Spirit's Visage. Banshee's Veil is really good against Assassins because of Spell Shield, and the Guardian's Angel is obviously, it gives both statistics and a revive. Late game, if you're just looking to deal more damage and your opponent's building a lot of MR, Void Staff is definitely the way to go. Either Guardian's Angel or Void Staff is going to be your final item in this build. And yeah, so that'll be it for this part of the guide. Check out my channel to see the 2 live commentaries coming out for Ryze. I hope you enjoyed the behind the scenes part of this guide. Don't forget to subscribe to see my content as it's released, and give it a like if you liked it. Also, leave suggestions or questions in the comments, as I read and reply to all of them at the moment while I'm still small and can keep up with them. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this guide. And remember to buy wards, yeah!